Welcome to Chapter 4, Section 7, Writing Decimals as Fractions. To begin with, any number that can be written as a fraction is a rational number. That means a fraction can be 4/3, rational number. 1/8, rational number. A number like pi, which is 3.14 and so on, is not rational. So this is how you go ahead and set this up. These are the steps. First of all, to write a decimal as a fraction, you follow these steps. Identify the place value of the last decimal place. You then write the decimal as a fraction using the place value as the denominator. So what that means, this is the place, this right here is the placeholder. So if you read a number and it was 10 thousandths, then you would put it 10,000 in the denominator. If necessary, you then simplify the fraction. So looking at this number right here, 0.4, on this place value chart, you should know all of your place values by this point, shows that the place value of the last decimal is a tenth. So 0.4 means 4 tenths. And so when you say 4 tenths, you write that as a fraction, putting the placeholder number in the denominator. To simplify, you divide the numerator and denominator by the greatest common factor. You can divide by any common factor if you want. I'm going to go ahead and divide by 2. That's the greatest common factor. And my new and final answer should be 2/5, because the greatest common factor is 2. So that's how that sets up. So now here's this place value chart again. 0.38. This is the last decimal. And it's in the hundredths placeholder. So you put the number in the numerator and the placeholder in the denominator. And looking at these, I'm not sure what the greatest common factor is, but I do know that they all are divisible by, this is divisible by 2. So when I divide this by 2, it becomes 19. This becomes 50. And right there, since 19 is prime, you know that the greatest common factor was 2. Here's one more. So the last decimal is a thousandths. So you once again, the number part goes in the numerator. The denominator then is thousandths. All right, so we say 264 thousandths. Alrighty, so now we have to divide by the greatest common factor. Well, I do not know what the greatest common factor is for those. You could find it using a factor tree if you wanted. But I'm going to go ahead and notice that they're both divisible by 2. So 1,000, that's 500. Half of 264 is 132. You should see both of these are even again, so divide again by 2. And you can keep going through this process. That should be 76 over 250. If we divide by 2 again, you get 38 over 125. And from here, both of them, oh, I'm sorry, you divide by 2 again. So here, 38 is even, 125 is odd. And I don't think 38, other than 2 and 19, none of those go into 125. So you simplify it all the way to 38 125ths. And you divide it by 2 once, twice, 3 times, so the greatest common factor was 8. Now please, once again, you do not have to divide by the greatest common factor. You can divide by any factor of both numbers. So, let's remember, in a decimal, the digit to the left of the decimal point represents the whole number, and the digit to the right of the decimal point represents the fraction. Please remember this. Because if you have a whole number, you're not going to, whole numbers and fractions and decimals really don't mix. So it's 18 and 50. So basically you're just looking at 0.15, which is 15 hundredths, which means you divide by 100. And the 18 is just along for the ride. So 15 over 100, you should see automatically is divisible by 5. At least I hope you see that. And that makes the top number 3 and the bottom number 20. So 18.15, that's 18 and 15 hundredths, ends up be reducing to 18 and 3 twentieths. All right, let's work on some of these. Write them in simplest form. So this is a tenth. So it's 8 over 10. Divide both sides by 2. And you get 4 fifths. This right here is a hundredth. So you would take the 64 and divide by 100. Both of these are divisible by, I know they're divisible by 4. At least I hope 64 is divided by 4. The denominator is 25. And the numerator is 16. So 64 hundredths reduces to, becomes 16 25ths. Take a look here. The 4 is in the thousandths place. So it's 824 divided by 1,000. Now we look to see what these are divisible by. All right, you can cut each one in half. So this is denominator becomes a 500, 412. Once again by 2. Becomes 206 and 250. That's once again by 2. That's 206. That becomes 103 for 125. And I think that's as simplified as you can go. So you should see that since you divided by 2 3 times, the greatest common factor is 8. All right, now D. I know my final answer is going to be 23 and something, and some fraction. This, all we're looking at now is the 56 hundredths. So 56 hundredths becomes, so you divide by 2, becomes 28 over 50. Divide by 2 again, becomes 14 25ths. And that's it. So 23 and 56 hundredths becomes 24 and 14 25ths. All right, so that's it. Make sure you do the CYUs for this. All right, all the notes here should be able to help you on those. These are the problems we'll go ahead and work on in class. Good luck.